what did your origins kind of look like? How did you start shuffling? Was it an inspiration that you saw online? Or was it people that you saw at like the shows that you'd go to and travel to Boston for and things like that? Like, what was that initial spark that you knew that this is something that you wanted to at least try? Like, I don't know, if at that moment you knew that you'd be doing it for 4 years, but
Yeah. So I actually had a friend at my work. Her name is Jackie. And she's still one of my biggest shuffle inspirations today. She's amazing. She started doing it. And I would say we were more like-minded than most people that we worked with, that we were around. And I saw her doing it. I just thought it was cool. And the way that she expressed it to me, was as being able to express yourself through music and through dance. And that just really appealed to me. There was something about that stood out, and made me think about it and curious about it. Yeah.
Okay. So it was this one individual. Do I know her? Have I ever met her?
I don't know. She came to the studio one time.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if you were there, but she's more low key in the shuffle community. But
okay.
She's amazing. She's phenomenal. Yeah, I feel like you can't miss her when she's dancing. She's very powerful and so controlled, very meticulous with the details of her movement. So yeah, definitely has a very unique style and expression.
I can see why you probably gravitated towards her dance or her style, because everything you just said there seems to be a little bit of, how you decide to move. I feel like you're very controlled and kind of meticulous. And I think Brent said it the best. Our buddy Brent. You're always in like learning mode. It looks like from when you're dancing, it looks like you're always working on something. It's never it's never like a pattern, or at least like what we can see. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's funny. I remember him saying that and being like, "Oh yeah, I'll watch you dance," and be like, "Oh, that was sick. Will I see her do that in a week? Probably not." I was like, "Yeah, that feels pretty accurate." That's something I work on, is like having more kind of controlled combos and different set things. But honestly, I just love to experiment and create. I'm always creating a different pattern or something, and that is just the way that my mind works. It's always exploring something new, and I just want to like learn and grow into something new. It's always like on to the next, which sometimes is great. Sometimes I would like to retain more. So
yeah. I mean, that's why we have videos and stuff. We're always like looking back at our old videos, like, oh, I remember when I used to hit that, or I remember when, I hit that combo or this kind of movement, or I looked that way.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think now as I get more present and intentional with my style, it's easier for me to kind of keep more of those cool combos and different concepts kind of in my back pocket and pull them out and play with them more. But for a while, it was just like, I just want to flow and I just want to be with whatever comes out of me. But there's something to both, for sure.
Yeah. And, I think when all of us were learning initially, it was like we all wanted to get to that point where we were just flowing, where it wasn't thinking about, now I'm going to hit, like for me, it was mostly shapes. So it was like, now I'm going to hit the Polly Pocket and then I'm going to go into Charleston. Like the moment that it was seamless for me and I was just doing it, that's when I started to have a lot of fun. So just going back to when you started, like, what did those first couple months look like for you? Like, what was the learning process? Was it messy? Was it, structured? Like, how did you go about, getting to where you are, or at least getting to that point where you were just flowing?
Yeah, it was definitely messy. I feel like when I first started shuffling, I was very disconnected from my body, like very dissociated and very clumsy. Like my movement did not look smooth. It was very sloppy. It was very like not full body unity. It was very like disjointed and kind of just like clumsy looking. So I would say for the first, probably at least 6 months, I looked pretty clumsy, which is okay because we all start somewhere. And I think shuffling was a beautiful journey of coming back into my body, and through that also like being able to know myself better and learn things about myself as I explored my own flow. So yeah, it took a long time, but it was just genuinely something that brought me joy, and it gave me a sense of purpose when, I didn't have a lot out in Maine, and that was just something that felt really good. And I could connect with a community that could see me, in a way that not a lot of people could.
Mm-hmm. No, that's awesome. And it is cool how the shuffle community does show up on Instagram and, even like YouTube back in the day and things like that. And you can really connect with people even when you're more or less isolated from where it happens, big cities and shows and things like that. So I know that was a good outlet for me as well when I started. Was when you were starting, during those first 6 months, was there any inclination to quit, after doing it? Were there any frustrations that were involved that, kind of made you want to throw in the towel?
I mean, I think there was comparison, and there's always a lot of that. But at the time, I think it was more motivating than anything to know what I could look like and the level that I could get to. So I think I just found such joy in shuffling, and I was coming out of a rather like dark period in my life. So I really held on to that joy, and I think I danced every single day just about for the first 9 months that I was shuffling. So I was really relentless with it. I would practice for an hour to 3 hours a day, sometimes more, when I have time off. And it was just a lot of YouTube videos and trying to learn shapes at first, not really knowing what else was out there. But yeah, so my OG inspirations was EXO, Ali, she's amazing, and probably like Sterling. Who else? Yeah, that's all that I know right now, but a lot of shapes. And it's not really, doesn't work too well for me.
I think that's kind of like where we all start with, or like the most of us, I think, because it's, I feel like Instagram is kind of trending that way, with a lot of like the shape movements that are coming out, and there's an allure to it. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, it's crazy footwork. And you were a soccer player, growing up and things like that. So I'm sure that was like, oh, I could do that, or I could work on that and get proficient at it, Yeah,
it's actually funny you say that because when I first started kind of just experimenting with my own flow and not really knowing what Melbourne was, but just kind of straying from shapes, I would incorporate a lot of my soccer moves into my flow and use like kicks into spins and all sorts of different things. And I think that's really one of the things that started to develop and curate my uniqueness. And people started being like, oh my God, I love your spins. And all this, you have crazy spins. And that kind of came from my soccer background.
Yeah, that was probably one of the best forms of advice that you gave me when we were doing our lessons. It was just think of something that you're already interested in or that you've done for many, many years, whether that be a sport or, sport is probably the most applicable to everyone. But for me, it was like wrestling, like how could I incorporate wrestling? And that's like level changes and things that I wouldn't think that would go into shuffling, like dropping down onto a knee, almost like you're taking like a shot or something like that.
Super cool.
And it's like, yeah, because I think when you're learning shuffling, right, like you're kind of putting things into a box. Like,
absolutely,
this move goes with this one, and like you don't really. You kind of give yourself barriers and it's hard to branch out of that. But once you realize that there's like no rules and you can just apply things that you've already become proficient with to shuffling, then your ability to pull out whatever or move differently, it just, there's more breadth to your dancing is kind of what I'm trying to say. So
yeah,
that piece of advice was really good for me, and you've expressed that to a lot of other people as well.
Definitely. Yeah, you have to learn the rules in order to then break them, for sure. You don't ever want to get too confined into that one box of how you think that things need to go. It's just can confine you to too much structure, and there's always a balance between structure and flow, and I think that's one of the reasons you were attracted to me as a shuffler, because I'm very on the flow oriented side, and I see the way that you lab and sesh, and you're more of you have that structured, regimented kind of mindset to your shuffling, I feel like.
Yeah, trying to get out of that for sure.
And I'm trying to do what you do. So, there's beauty in that as well.
We're helping each other out all the time.